Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. If you've ever been afraid to have sex, ashamed to talk about sex, or felt guilty or dirty or wrong after having sex, alone or partnered, this video is for you. Purity culture doesn't just go away just because you leave the church or stop believing it or graduate from school and aren't taught abstinence-only education anymore. It doesn't just leave your brain just because you don't want to believe it anymore. For a lot of people, for most of us, those big ideas that okay, yeah, in theory, I understand pleasure's not bad. And okay, yeah, I understand that I can feel attraction if I'm someone who experiences attraction, and that's fine. I shouldn't be upset about that. Cool, I get it. But then you get in the moment and it's different, right? For so many people who went through purity culture, for so many people who lived in a house that didn't talk about sex, that grew up in an environment where talking about anything connected to pleasure was dirty or taboo or something was wrong with it. Sometimes even the idea of initiating the conversation or, God forbid, initiating actually doing something with a partner is, well, that's an intense idea, right? Because purity culture teaches people that sex in itself is wrong until marriage, anything for sure outside of marriage is still going to feel wrong. And it doesn't just stop once you're married either, as we all know. In addition, women's pleasure is never prioritized. It is 100% about men wanting sex and women hiding from sex. That's purity culture in a nutshell.
Hide your bodies, don't tempt people, be ashamed of what your body does because it tempts people.
Men, you are just
ravenous animals. Be ashamed of that because that's terrible.
And as a woman, you're hearing that being a ravenous animal is terrible. Therefore, you're assuming that having sexual attraction is terrible, right? So how many times do you have to double down on the idea that feeling sexual attraction is bad before you just assume that there's something wrong with feeling sexual attraction? I'll tell you, not often. You don't have to hear it very much before your brain goes, okay, cool, sexual attraction bad. Got it. Add on to that the layer of being part of the queer community where sex itself is really never defined or understood. What does that do then for somebody to understand who they are, what pleasure means for them, what their body does, what their body doesn't do, what they're supposed to do with it or what they're supposed to want to do with it? How do you make sense of any of that? How? People don't know what they don't know when they don't receive education on what sex is and isn't, especially within the queer community. And that is a hard thing to then ask people. Because who are you going to ask? Are you going to ask your partner who may or may not have more experience than you? That can feel embarrassing. Are you going to ask your parents? I mean, people who are straight have a hard time asking their straight parents about sex. Are you as a queer person going to ask your straight parents about sex? I mean, kudos to you if you do. That was never something I was ever going to do. Ever. So what are your options? Something in media. Pretty much. Other queer friends, which kind of holds the same stress that asking a partner does, especially if you feel like they're in a different category because they have more experience than you do. That all is going to pile on the shame. So you've got layer on layer on layer on layer of shame. What do you do now? Especially if you've got a partner that you want to be with. Most of the time, you're just going to go, I'm going to do what they want to do and assume that that's good. And that's it. That's it. If we're going to be more experimental, they're going to lead it. I'm not going to initiate. I am just going to let them lead and that's it. And maybe that's good for you. Maybe that's perfect for you. Great. For a lot of people, that doesn't feel like sexual freedom. This especially can show up in long-term relationships when you've got maybe mismatched libidos. If you are not somebody who is feeling like you are ever able to initiate, if you are not somebody who is ever able to feel free sexually when you and your partner are together, if you're somebody who feels dirty or ashamed after the two of you are together, that often leads to a disconnect between you and your body, which is in reality already disconnected. If you've gone through purity culture as it is, see my video on I Kiss Purity Culture Goodbye. The detachment between you and your body and what you need, what you want, how you want to experience that is already pretty intense. And while you're sort of mending that, you're also supposed to just know how sexuality leads back into that, right? And you're supposed to know what that means for a partner who may or may not have similar body parts to you when you don't know how your body parts react to things. Do you see how that shame and that disconnect is just going to pile on also? Plus added to the fact that you had to hide your queer identity for however long. Right. Okay. So now we know where we all are. What do we do about it? The first thing that you need to do is name the lessons, the scripts, the stories that you've been told about yourself. Either that you've told yourself, that partners have told you, that the church told you, that society has told you. And that's going to have to be really honest. So start with the furthest away from you, the easiest to name, and work inward. Okay? And it looks something like this. I was told that my pleasure didn't matter. That's one that's fairly easy because most people were told it. And then work inward. We never really talked about what sex or consent looked like in my family. That's a little more personal, right? It's a little more specific to you. It comes in a layer, right? So we're naming things as they come in closer and closer. And as you name them, maybe a journal prompt, maybe a conversation with a trusted friend. We're talking about untangling some of these stories that you've been told about yourself and the way your body works, the way that sex works, the way that you're supposed to be. All the way in to the stories you've been told about your own worthiness. My body is gross. I probably smell. There's no way this partner likes me with my clothes off. Those lessons that you've either told yourself or another partner has told you or whatever, maybe you've learned by watching things in media where people have perfect bodies and sex works great, and then you've had things like go awry during interactions with a partner. So you're like, well, clearly I'm not good at this. Those lessons, right? Those things that you know you've thought and yet haven't been able to name to even some of your closest friends. We're naming all of them one by one as you feel comfortable, and we are rewriting the script, okay? So instead of there's no way my partner wants to see me with my clothes off, say I get embarrassed with my clothes off. You're not making decisions for your partner. You're making honest statements from you. So because you were told not to like sex, now you're afraid to like sex because of what it might say about you. So now what do you want to do with that? What do you want to do with that? Do you want to stay in that? You can stay in that. That's totally fine. Or do you want to rewrite the idea that it's okay to like it and that doesn't say anything negative about you? You know, again, a lot of these are journal type prompts. A lot of these are things that you can potentially talk about with a therapist, potentially talk about with a good friend if you aren't ready to talk about this with a therapist, but I would encourage you to talk to somebody who is educated and licensed in this field. Pulling those things apart and being honest about them with yourself and with maybe one other or two other, three other trusted people is going to help to normalize for yourself this process and for your future this process. This was not your fault. You didn't ask to jump into purity culture, and you didn't ask to be told that there's something wrong with you or the way that you feel or the way that you want to feel. That wasn't on you. This is what happened to you, and you get to rewrite it. But you don't have to take ownership of the things that were said to you. That's not on you. For the record, rewriting some of these narratives also might mean being honest about how not okay you've been treated. And that's to say, if you've had partners in the past that have made you feel pretty crappy about your body, about your abilities, about your sexuality in general, that's not on you. And releasing that and making that their problem, a problem in them, not a problem in you, is part of this rewriting. Okay? That's a hard thing to do, and I get that because likely they would have made it seem like it was your fault. That's kind of how that works. I'm here to tell you that that's not. after you've begun to name the scripts and rewrite those narratives, the next thing you need to do is connect to your pleasure. And this is something that I've talked about briefly in a lot of my purity culture videos. I don't know that I've been explicit enough. So here's what I mean. Figure out what your body likes. That's individually figure out what your body responds to. In my description box, I have a link to a discount code on Lello's website. They're an inclusive pleasure company that has some really great products if you want to go that direction. You don't have to, though. You can do that with a partner or without a partner, but figuring out what your body responds to is the next step to releasing that shame, because there's nothing wrong with your body and there's nothing wrong with pleasure. You're allowed to feel it. And you don't have to be ashamed of that. Convincing yourself that is going to be another story. I get that. But somebody should be telling you this, so I'm going to tell you. A reminder, as you are doing this exploration though, pace yourself. Don't push yourself further than you're ready to go. Like, don't shame yourself for feeling insecure about it. Again, what you have experienced and learned about yourself over the years was not something you asked for. And now you having to do the work to untangle that in order to not freeze up when with a partner, in order to know who you are. You having to do that work now is not fair. And also it's yours to do now. So here we are. Do it at your own pace. And don't shame yourself along the way for having to do the pace that you need to do, because that's kind of counterproductive, right? Need to remember that this is not like brokenness. And the word brokenness has been so co-opted by the church, right? Like, you're a broken people and God will make you whole and blah, stuff like that. And also, the idea of being a broken person is pervasive in a lot of people's lives because they feel like there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You were given a message. The message was incorrect. We are correcting the message. Simple. Done. We're just working on it. We're all works in progress. And it's just something you're working on. It's okay. It's honestly okay. And that is it for today. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about or anything related to this, make sure you put it in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.